Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. House Democrats are upping the pressure on President Trump, but in the coming days, President Trump may face a challenge to his authority from an unexpected source, Senate Republicans, who could force him to grab his veto pen over their concerns about his executive authority on the border wall. Joining me now, Republican from Louisiana, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator John Kennedy. Senator, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. So Michael Cohen testified under oath before the House Oversight Committee that the president directed him to commit a campaign finance violation and cut him reimbursement checks while he was president. You're a lawyer. You sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Do you think that if what Cohen is saying was true, and he did have that check as evidence, do you think that was illegal, unethical, neither, both?
Jake, I don't know. I didn't listen to the testimony. I was in committee over in the Senate, but I read excerpts. Mr. Cohen has accused the president of violating our banking laws, of violating our campaign finance laws. I feel pretty confident that he's given all that information to Mr. Mueller. We'll see what Mr. Mueller has to say. I think any fair-minded person would have to question Mr. Cohen's checkered past. He's an angry man. He's bitter. That much is clear. As I said the other day, I'm not saying he's on the pipe crazy, but he's a little unbalanced. But look, I don't know who's telling the truth and who isn't, but Mr. Mueller, I'm sure, will get to the bottom of it. My personal opinion about Mr. Cohen is that he has an axe to grind, and I think most Americans will understand his checkered past.
The Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney there, says Cohen, who's going to jail for election fraud and other charges, Cohen, quote, acted with the intent to influence the 2016 presidential election at the direction of President Trump himself in these hush money payments. That's the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. That's a crime. He's going to jail for it. But what about the president's role in it as asserted by the U.S. Attorney?
Well, once again, if it's true. If it's true.
The U.S. Attorney says it's true.
Well, if it's true, then he'll bring an indictment. And
against the president?
I don't know. But if it's true, he'll prosecute it if he thinks he can win. But I'll tell you this. I'll bet if anybody prosecutes any of the crimes that Mr. Cohen alleged, they won't rely solely on Mr. Cohen's testimony. To put it in commonsensical terms, I wouldn't take Mr. Cohen's check, and I'll bet you wouldn't either.
I want to ask you about another item from Cohen's hearing. Take a listen to this exchange between Cohen and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
To your knowledge, did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Should Congress investigate whether or not President Trump committed insurance fraud?
Well, I think the House is going to investigate regardless of whether we should or we shouldn't. We both understand, I think, that there's a political tinge to all of this. There's going to be 2 years of this. I hope we get something done besides investigations aimed at impacting the next election. You know, we've got 2 years left. We can ride the anger, or we can try to solve some problems around here. I hope we do the latter.
You're on the record saying you're going to vote to support the president's declaration of a national emergency on the southern border. Not all of your Republican colleagues are on board. Tennessee Senator Lamar Alexander took to the Senate floor to oppose the emergency this week. He said, quote, there is no limit to the imagination of what the next left-wing president could do to harm our country with this precedent. Do you not have similar concerns about the precedent this might set?
Well, here's why I find that a specious argument. The assumption is that a future president who happened to be a Democrat would not be smart enough or not have a staff smart enough to understand that there is a National Emergencies Act statute, and there are other statutes, I think over 100 of them, that give the president this authority. Look, he's not using any authority that Congress hasn't already given him. Using this authority is not and was not my preferred choice. But unlike some of my colleagues, I don't think that the president doing this is going to end Western order. The sun will come up the next morning. I do think he is probably rethinking the situation. As I understand it, he has the ability, without resorting to a national emergency, he can put together $4.5, maybe $5 billion. I've been asked repeatedly, what's the vote going to be in the Senate? I don't know, but I'll tell you this right now. I don't think the president has the votes on a straight-up vote to sustain his position. Now, If the Senate says, Mr. President, you don't have the authority as the House did, I expect the president to veto it, and we'll be right back to where we are now.
Congressman Justin Amash, the only Republican in the House co-sponsoring legislation to terminate the emergency. He's coming up next.
Right.
He says President Trump is, quote, attempting to circumvent our constitutional system. Now, yes, the National Emergency Act exists, but it has never been used before, as you know, to get funds for something that Congress will not allocate funds for. Do you not have any concerns on constitutional?
Well, again, it wasn't my preferred choice. I would have preferred to have Congress do its job. Now, not all my colleagues agree with me, but I do believe that we have a problem at the border, that we have a crisis at the border. We have had, in my judgment, a 15-year bipartisan refusal here in Washington, D.C., by both big government Republicans and Ritz-Carlton Democrats to refuse to enforce America's immigration laws. Trump's enforcing them. Now, you may like that or dislike it, but he's enforcing them. Some of my colleagues don't agree with him. To them, the border is kind of a nuisance.
You're talking about Republican colleagues, too?
I'm talking about Democratic colleagues. Okay. So to them, the border is a nuisance. To some of my Democratic friends, they make no distinction between legal and illegal immigration. And if you disagree with them, you're a racist. I believe that legal immigration makes our country stronger. I believe that illegal immigration undermines legal immigration. I believe that illegal immigration is illegal. I mean, duh.
Right.
And one way to combat it, not the only way, is a border wall. I don't see how any fair-minded person can conclude, particularly if he or she has border security experience, that you can secure 1,900 miles of real estate without a wall or a barrier. You can't. And every other country that has used one, Israel, for example, with its 400-mile border wall with the West Bank, they found success with it. Now, you can debate whether it's ethical or moral or the right thing to do, but that's a different debate, Jake, from the debate of whether it's effective. It's very effective.
All right, well, let's hear the other side of it. Senator John Kennedy, we appreciate your time, and
Thanks,
we appreciate
man.
your being here this morning. Let's go to that Republican lawmaker who says